Alright, so I got a weird one for you here. In Super Mario 64, you are able to lose your hat in various ways, from like being blown off or giving it to a monkey. And of course, you could just go back and pick it up and then have your hat back. But this made me wonder, is there anyone out there who actually prefers playing this game without Mario having a hat? Because I mean, it is something you can do if you really wanted to. But when I originally thought of this, I didn't know if you could still use the special hats, like the flying ones or the metal one, if you didn't have a hat. But no, you can still use them. Perfectly fine, nothing wrong here. So if you really want to play Super Mario 64 without a hat, you have no penalties. So I gotta at least guess that there's at least one person out there that prefers playing this game with Mario's hair showing. So there's a point in the SpongeBob movie game that always kind of stood out to me. That being in the Planktopolis level, and during the final stretch, you have to go through something that is called Plankton's Riddle. And how this works is that there's a set of Manly points that shows what's right and what's wrong, the green being right and the red being wrong. And well, I always found it fascinating that if you were to just pick them up and then not do the puzzle, then you would have no clue what to do. Now granted, I haven't played this game or even, I don't think, failed the puzzle, so I don't know if you would immediately die or have to trial and error it, or even if the dumbbells respawn. But it's still a fascinating thing where if they don't respawn, then you just screw yourself over by not paying attention. Alright, so I got another little thing that always bugged me that just so happens to be one of the first one of these that I've actually written down. And that is, why is the GTA 3 opening on the Xbox version slightly faster than the other versions? Because it's like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 seconds faster than usual, and it always bugs me because it doesn't let the theme play all the way through. It just cuts the damn thing out. Now originally I thought maybe it's because this version was done by Rockstar Leeds, but then I actually went and compared the two versions, and no, it's the same exact opening. The only difference is that it's just slightly faster for no reason. The animation is moving faster, and then it fades out faster, it seems. And it just makes me wonder, was this a genuine accident, or is this just because it's playing on better hardware, so the video plays faster, and there was nothing they could do to fix it? Alright, time to be a bit controversial, and that is because when I played Sonic Adventure 2, I did not like it very much. For many reasons, many of which I can't get into because I only have 60 seconds, but the levels weren't good, the treasure hunting was worse than the first game, and the bosses, some of those bosses really sucked. And I just sat there after playing it genuinely thinking, people think this is the best 3D Sonic game? Why? And this isn't a situation where I played the newer ones first and would automatically prefer them to the older ones. I like Sonic Adventure 1. It's just this game doesn't do it for me, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I should do a proper review of it, or at the very least replay it. Because I remember when I first played Sonic Heroes, I hated it, but then played it a few years later and then I warmed up to it a bit. So a good while back I made one of these about how I dislike how the battle for Bikini Bottom is just a non-ending, because literally nothing happens. So I guess you can call this a sequel to that one, because despite the fact that the console versions didn't have a definitive ending, the PC and Game Boy Advance versions do. And it's just hilarious to me that the side versions have more definitive endings than the main version, and one of them is just a freaking wall of text, while the other one is at least more entertaining with Patrick destroying the machine. It always sucks when you're playing older FPS games or older styled FPS games on harder difficulties, since in literally every engagement, one wrong move could kill you easily. But I gotta say, the worst part of it is definitely when you actually manage to survive by the skids of your teeth, and then you have a bit of a breather where you go back into the level and try and find health items to boost it back up. And then when you're finally ready to move on, you go up against enemies again, and then all that time spent looking around the level, trying to find the little scraps that you can, go obliterated away within literal seconds. God bless the man who created quick saves. Alright, so back when I played the first Castlevania game, there was something about it that I didn't notice. That being that the stages in the game all had timers on them. And well, it's just the fact that I didn't notice them means that they weren't really that important to me. And looking back on the footage, I could definitely see why. It's because they give you way too much time, to be honest. And it's just stuff like this that makes me wonder why even bother having a timer. Like, it makes me wonder if anyone actually ever lost in this game at any point due to losing all the time in the timer. It just really shouldn't be there. So in GoldenEye, there's a level where you're taken in by the Russian police and you're sent to their military archives. And well, because of this, you end up getting all of your weapons stripped of you. And I bring this up because obviously in the movie, James Bond does whatever, I honestly don't remember, I haven't seen it in a while, to get out of the situation and get his weapons back. And even in the remake, there's even a cutscene that shows the guy like throwing his gun to you, which is obviously something that could have not been done on the N64. And it's just, I bring this all up because I find it genuinely hilarious that Rare's like solution to this was literally just put the gun and some ammo on the table right in front of you. Because like, that's such a dumb but yet simple solution, even though it makes no sense at all. But I mean, I get it, they wanted to immediately give you a weapon, although it wouldn't be completely impossible to karate chop your way out of that room. So at the beginning of the first Dead Rising, there's always something that kinda bugged me, because at the beginning there's a plot point that never gets picked up again. That is because when they're first flying in and Frank wants the guy to land on the helipad on the mall, the military interrupt them. And because of this, they have to fly erratically. And during this flight, Frank drops a case that presumably had some important stuff in it. But the thing is, you play through the entirety of the rest of the game, they never bring up the case again. And it's just like, it was important enough for Frank to bring, but not go back after? So then that brings up the obvious question of what the hell was even in the case. I would imagine like some sort of camera equipment, but again, they just never bring it up again. So when GTA 3 came out, it came out with a bunch of cars, but it did not come out with bikes available in the game, since Rockstar probably didn't know how to properly make them at that point. But as the series went on, they would eventually make their debut, and be a part of this series since. And one of these titles include Liberty City Stories, where GTA 3 also took place, but this time a few years earlier. And well, I bring this all up because Rockstar did a really neat thing here, which is give a proper lore reason on why bikes didn't appear in GTA 3, which is something they didn't have to do, but it's really cool that they did. Now for the actual reason, I don't know exactly where it is. I want to say it's a radio commercial, but it's because I believe a kid died on a motorcycle, so they banned them. They try to ban them throughout the entirety of the city. It really sucks when you play a sequel in a series that has an ability from the previous games, but it has no use in it at all. Like, because it's just straight up pointless. And the example for this that I used that made me write this down is the scanning ability in the Batman Arkham games, where you would usually hold down the left bumper button in order to scan the environment, then get like a Riddler challenge done. And well, in Batman Arkham Origins, this ability returns, but it's literally never used. Like, I'm pretty sure the game even tells you not to use it because there's nothing to scan throughout the entirety of the game to my knowledge. And it's just like, again, why is this here if you can't use it? It's just pointless to be here. Why didn't you just remove it and just leave it at that? Having played many shooter games up to this point, I think I have kind of unlearned a realistic piece of information, and it has basically overlaid by video game logic, which is the fact that whenever you reload a weapon in a game, you don't lose the ammo in the clip, whereas obviously in real life, whenever you reload a clip, all the ammo that's still in it is gone, and it's just because I guess this is one of those situations where I had more experience with weapons virtually than in real life. Well, this plus the fact that I can't really think of really any games other than one that does the realistic loss of ammunition. But in the end, I guess it's good that I managed to catch myself with this. So semi-early into San Andreas, you get introduced to the ideas of gang territories that you could take over, which is exactly how it sounds. You go kill some rival gang members and then do a wave-based thing, and then you have the piece of territory. But as the story progresses, this doesn't last, and you end up losing it all. And well, it's because of this that it made me genuinely wonder, has anyone ever actually made the mistake of going after the gang territories the first time and maybe even, like, collecting them all? Although I will admit that I only could think of two possible ways that this could have happened. The first of which is somebody deciding to play this game without having any prior knowledge of it. But the second situation is much more interesting to me, which is somebody who decided to play it like as it came out all the way back in the day, but then never knew this was going to happen to begin with, so then they went and made that fatal mistake. So Scooby-Doo Unmasked has this neat little feature where you can collect clues and then you have to talk with Velma in order to figure out the mystery using those clues. But unfortunately, it's kind of underutilized as well as very dumbed down. But to me, it's kind of just a really interesting concept that got really underutilized, which then made me think of an idea of an open world Scooby-Doo game where you like actually go into like an abandoned theme park and like search it for clues. And then I thought about it even a bit farther, then came up with the conclusion of an LA Noire style Scooby-Doo game. Because I'm not wrong here, right? That would kind of work. So the 360 store is going down soon, and before it does, I want to call out Sega on some bullshit that I came across in it. It referring to Sonic and All-Stars Racing. And well, if you go into like the extras category of stuff that you could buy for this game, like DLCs, one of the things that you can just straight up buy is unlocking all the characters and I think all the maps and whatever else in the game. And it's just like, wow, why in God's name would you do this? What's the best way for people to play the game? By not playing it, of course. Instead, we'll just squeeze out an extra $5 per lazy person who doesn't even bother. Yeah, let's nullify the victory of actually achieving something by just letting you pay for it. What a great idea. I remember all the way back in the day when I first played Paper Mario 2, I managed to get myself stuck in it, which was in Chapter 4 when you lose your identity. And for whatever reason, when I first met Vivian and she joined my party, I somehow missed the part where she tells you to go underneath when going to the crows. So having tried everything to make progress and failing, I came up with an idea. That idea being simply to wait for Chugga Conroy to get to this part and then see what he does to continue the game. But of course, me being the impatient kid that I was would end up trying everything all over again, until I would eventually accidentally get it right and go into the shadows at the right place. So it's really fun to play trivia games every once in a while, with quite a few of them being available in the modern day, as well as the ability to play against random people online. But the unfortunate truth with games like these is that you never know who's cheating in this day and age, since you could just literally look up the question online and try and find an answer. Although if you have the benefit of the doubt, you could just argue that they are actually that smart, but you really can't tell when they're literally getting every single question correct. Alright, so I really hate it when you start playing Minesweeper, you know, you get your board and then ready to go, and you decide to start clicking on your first box, but out of all the boxes you could have clicked, it's a mine. Literally the first thing you click on is a mine, then you're just dead and you gotta restart and it just sucks. And then it even sucks more when you think, that's definitely not gonna happen again, but then it does. Alright, so in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game, you pick up dumbbells that are known as manly points, and once you collect a certain amount of them, a bar in the upper left corner fills all the way up, and then you get an upgrade point because of it. And then with that upgrade point, you could obviously upgrade your health or one of your abilities. And so because of this, I have two questions. The first one is, obviously, has anyone ever beaten this game without upgrading anything? And the second one is, if you have beaten it without upgrading anything, how much harder was the game? Because although this is a kid's game and it is generally easy, I would imagine that there has to be at least a somewhat significant difficulty bump from not upgrading your abilities. Alright, whenever you see the Batmobile driving around, you'd think that it'd be going pretty fast, right? Especially with that rocket thruster on the back. You'd think that at the bare minimum it has to be like going 100 miles per hour. So I gotta say, it's pretty funny when I played a game where you specifically only drive the Batmobile to see the numbers be way lower than I expected. Seeing the thing's max speed only be like 60 or even 80. Batman should be as disappointed as I am that his car isn't as fast as it should be. So Nintendo World Championship has challenges that you have to complete within 3 different games, and one of these games is Super Mario Bros., in which you must collect 50 coins in order to complete it. Now this poses a question to me. Now I don't know if the actual cart has the entirety of Super Mario Bros. On it, but can you beat the entirety of Super Mario Bros. Without collecting 50 coins, like going under, whether it be on the actual proper game or this version of it? Alright, so the first Call of Duty Black Ops game takes place in the 60s, with you playing as a CIA operative, with you going on many different secret missions, which is very disconnected from the previous Treyarch game World at War, which was set in World War II. But despite these disconnections, they actually managed to connect the stories of World at War's Russian campaign to the main game of Black Ops, with you meeting Reznov in the second mission. And well, Treyarch didn't have to do this, but I gotta be perfectly honest, this was such a genius move by them. Having you reconnect with old friends and then continuing their story, even if that story didn't necessarily have the happiest of endings. Alright, so I like the idea of speedrunning a game, of it just trying to beat the game as quickly as possible, like whether it be by yourself or like in a race against your friends. But where it kind of dissuades me is the idea of doing it professionally, I guess. The idea of having to train yourself so that way you can get the perfect run, where literally nothing can go wrong or else you have to do it all over again. I mean, I get the appeal of trying to break down your favorite game as much as you can, but I'd rather just do it much more casually. So I'm not a lover of pinball. I mean, it's fun to play and all, but just not exactly something I would go out of my way to play, I guess. And because of this, I kind of just see it as simply as what it is, just try and hit the ball and trying to get as high a score as possible. So it always seems bizarre to me whenever I play it that I have to remind myself that pinball tables actually have objectives within them. Like, there is a game within the game that you have to play in order to properly beat it. And that's just something that I would never think would be in a pinball game at first glance. So there's a couple Sega racing games, and of course with that, Sonic is going to be the most prominent character within it, so much so that the last game is just solely Sonic characters. And so with that, a lot of the racetracks are going to be from his series, such as Ocean View, Sandopolis, Casino Night, and the Death Egg. But I gotta say, there are some levels that I just gotta question how the hell did they not pick them. I mean, there's such obvious choices such as Starlight Zone, Stardust Speedway, or even Radical Highway. Those would work perfectly as a racetrack, but no, they were just instead left out.